Well, it's 1 o'clock, so let's get going. And oops, sorry about that. Um, Welcome everybody. This is MFA Lore's well-published series, Live Substacks, and today our subject is literary magazine submissions. And I am so excited to have Shannan Mann here. Shannan is poet and essayist who holds a head-spinning array of day jobs in and around literary publishing. She is managing director of the subclub Substack, the newsletter of Chill Stubs, which I'm going to ask Shannan about. Um, she's also the founder and creative director of Only Poems, a terrific poetry journal, which also has a Substack. And on top of all of this, she's a mom and an MFA student at Virginia Tech. So do I have all that right, Shannan? And could you give a thumbnail description of Chill Subs and what subscribers get from
Yeah.
Sub Club? So this is promote publication.
That's great. I think you did, like, you summed it up pretty well. But yeah, like, I work for Chill Subs, and before working, I was a very heavy Chill Subs user. This was when they were quite new. It was just great to have a space that felt both and easy and not like didn't take itself so seriously. I think sometimes as writers, and maybe all artists do this, take ourselves really seriously, and as we should in some ways. Sometimes it can be fun to just, like, you know, be easy, like, find the real, like, little joys in the sea of rejection and see the humor in a life like the life that we signed up for, which like no person with Chill Subs. And then it was lovely to get to actually join them and start working with them. What they offer is it makes a writer's writing life and journey easier, which is a kind of soul as an SOUL goal of the project. There's the database, which is on Chill Subs, which some of you might have used before, where you can find over 3,000 literary magazines, several thousand indie presses, contests, and now Substacks and mediums to find for public that you can find to publish your work. You can filter according to keywords, according to your genre, your subgenre, your vibe that you're looking for, which I think is really fun. You can also make free writer profiles on there. And you can look up, like, lists, what's trending, what magazines are trending. All the stats are accessible for free, which is something that is really special. There's Subclub, which is our Substack newsletter arm, now like a whole, like, collection of arms, or this, like, beautiful monstrosity in and of itself. And there we send out, amongst other things, opportunities every week on where you can submit your writing. On Mondays we send you opportunities of where you can submit writing to literary magazines. Wednesdays we've got where you can query for agents. We also do indie press, indie presses that are open to queries without agents. You've got monthly contest lists, theme calls, interviews with, like, industry insiders, really fun, fun stuff, all related to kind of helping writers get published. And we try to maintain a very solid, I suppose, balance between providing for the free subscribers. I think now there's around 45,000 free subscribers, which is so cool. And then we also have, we recently, I think we're still there, got to number 2 for the Substack, for the top Substacks in the literature category. I think Jerks Honors is ahead of us. I'm not sure if we'll get ahead.
Always.
One can hope. But yeah, so we try to make sure that there's, like, even if you're a free subscriber, you still get the value because you're still valuable. You'll start writing. And then if you're paid, you get some other really awesome perks as well.
That's a big
That's
nut.
like, I suppose.
So that's kind of why I wanted to have you pretty overwhelming, and it's very confusing. Like if I go on the website, I don't even know where to start. So I have some key questions that have been, building my career. And so I'm really thrilled to have a chance to, selfishly ask you these questions. So let's take it sort of step by step.
Notes as well. So
the submission process is so grueling. These magazines, often it takes months for them to reply, and you hardly ever get accepted, and payments even rarer. And so just like the bottom line is, what is the true benefit of getting published in these magazines? And I know you wrote about this morning, since I just looked at your latest post. So this is a softball. Why do it at all?
This is something we all wonder as writers. I've wondered this as well. And I think practically there are different reasons for it. Publishing in LitMags is a solid step into the kind of path of officialness that can dictate or begin a writer's life, whether you want to go down the path of being in the future a published author with a big five, with an indie press, whether you want to be self-published, or you want to be one of those things but you end up being one of the others, or you want to be any different, like any kind of writer, whether that's an academic writer or a poet or a nonfiction, fiction, etc. I think a LitMag space, and where the LitMag scene also began, and I think where its beating heart still is in that space of that kind of almost a first step. I suppose a first step you can also see like zines as that, but I'm kind of collating both LitMags and zines into one pretty box here. So essentially, a really solid first step to get there. Of course, it can feel like even that first step is really hard. People think about this like with publishing books. You might think that I want to get my book published, but before your book ever sees it, first see the eyes of an agent, and even then, there's so many agents who can reject you, and there's a tendency to think of them as gatekeepers. But I often feel like these things can be as daunting or as fun as you make them out to be. Ultimately, of course, there's validation in getting published in a LitMag, especially if it's like a big one and you get your name in there. And there can be a sense of community too. The good thing now is, even from 10 years ago, even from since COVID, I think after COVID, there was about 1,200 LitMags or something crazy like that were just founded. There's so many options now. So, we're not bound to just the kind of university-backed, very dusty old volume style LitMags out there where you're just knocking on this ornate door, gold leafed and plated or whatever. There are so many options out there that you can get that head started, and then you can see to see the kind of social impact these places have, and figure out what goals you want in that direction. Other than that, I think it's very fun to submit to places, to get an idea, to fumble around in the darkness, to learn, or to make that community. At times it can be life-changing, at times it can be year-changing, or it can just be a fun, project that you do on the side. Doesn't have to be life-consuming. It can be enjoyable, and that's the kind of style that I like to focus on. I think a LitMag
fun. Somehow I've never associated that with the whole process of submitting to literary magazines, which always is horrifying and intimidating and frustrating. And so I love that idea of making it fun. Let's focus on trying to do that in this conversation. First, I wanted to ask you whether you think actually it makes sense for all writers to go this route, or are there some not who maybe would be better off spending their time just focusing on their novel that they're going to submit straight to agents? I mean, is there anybody who doesn't really belong in this?
I wouldn't say anybody who doesn't belong there, but I'd say that LitMags don't usually publish Well, they don't publish novels, at least not any that I know of.
Excerpts they do
Yeah,
sometimes, but
they
yeah.
would. I can see them maybe like they used to. Like LitMags, in a way, were rooted in serialized novels, so it's kind of funny that we don't do that anymore. That can be
Mhm.
maybe something if somebody wants to start that back would be pretty cool. Henry James, obviously Charles Dickens. These guys had their big tome published in serialized novels, and you can see that in the style of what the book is. Also, like you can tell that there's, every chapter is like
Mhm.
beckoning you to go to the next one. Like, I know, Charles, I'm gonna go. It's right here. But that wasn't the case for people who were getting it then. So there's room, I think, for somebody who wants to start a new kind of a lit mag to do that. And I think Substack would be a really cool medium to create something like, yeah, something like that. But in terms of genre, in terms of scope, in terms of style, they're really just so
Writers, and is this whole world of literary magazines now completely internationalized, or is it still sort of US centric? How does
oh yeah,
any
no,
thoughts on that?
for sure. Most magazines, I would say 99% of magazines are open to international authors, and not just open to them, but seek more international authors for sure. Yeah.
And so we all know the names like the New Yorker, the Paris Review, Granta, Plowshares. They're the
Yes.
top of the food chain, the pinnacle of the literary publication world. And they're well beyond the reach of most of us lowly writers, especially early in our careers. So the question is, as you move down the mountain, all of a sudden you start to see just legions of names of literary magazines that are not so familiar. And as a writer who's sort of just entering this world, how do you figure out how select? So let's start with the selectivity issue. Is that something that Chill Subs
Oh yeah.
focuses on, or
Oh, for sure. Yes. There's different ways that you can access that for yourself. Like if you go into the browse, which is a really handy tool to use, and probably one of the first things that you can use when you go on Chill Subs, you can filter by vibe. And like some of the vibes are like, top tier, not like the Paris review, but, okay. And like, another one is like, it's like more open, to, it's still serious, but like not that serious. So you can kind of filter by that vibe. And you can also search by social media followings. You can search by kind of like, for one, you can search for magazines that are just open. So actually just seeing, not kind of like you go through and make your list of magazines that you want to submit to, and then, they don't open for like a year or something,
yeah.
which many of those top tier journals are like. Um, so that is really helpful. And we also have lots of lists available that show kind of the response times, show the, tiers based on different rankings. And it makes it easy to kind of just explore the world of LitMags in general, so you get an understanding. One thing that I would always recommend is go to the magazine's website, see who they're publishing, and then see if it's being spoken about um, online. And I know that that can sound maybe vapid in some way, but the reality is that that's the world we live in. Most of the kind of There's a lot of social noise in social media, of course, but there is a lot of positivity too. It is still connecting people to resources that they need. It is still connecting writers to communities, and to kind of go and see, well, yeah, the Paris Review is so popular, but like, if you go on the socials of that particular magazine, you might find that, like, and I have seen this many times, a much newer, stranger, weirder, small magazine will have so much more of a strong, loving community rallying behind it that is excited to read the work that they produce, as opposed to just kind of getting the official glitzy Paris Review thing. And Paris Review only takes magazines submitted by agents, and much love to agents. everywhere. But I think a magazine that doesn't read from the slush pile is honestly a dead magazine. That I find that is not what a literary magazine should be for. I mean, if you're doing that, then call yourself, I don't know, a variety magazine or a culture magazine or something else. Same with the New Yorker as well. They, try to look for places that actually still value um, people people's voices, people in the world who are sending in their work. Yeah.
That whole idea of social media was something I had never thought about before.
Yes.
So that's very cool. That's a different way of thinking of it. And on the agent thing, I think that agent thing is very tricky too, because a lot of agents won't even bother doing any of that for their clients unless it's a very, very rare situation. I mean, they're too busy with publishers and just doing what they have to do to get books published. They don't think about that with I think pretty rare exceptions. It just seems like too much effort on top of everything else they have to do. So that's really interesting. So often if you go online to literary magazines, you're considering submitting to something, they always say, urge you to subscribe to their magazine and read their magazine and make sure that, it's a place that you want to submit to. And um, I assume that most of their subscribers are writers who want to submit to them. But, is it realistic to think we're going to subscribe to every magazine that we submit to? I mean, what's your standard advice on that?
Oh, for sure. No, it's not realistic, and this is also one reason. Like with Only Poems, we our magazine's completely free to read, whether you subscribe or not. It's not print, but even if we were to do a print issue, we'd want to make it something that will be close to free to read, because I don't think that the writing in these magazines should be gatekeep it. I hate it when you're like reading something and then on like in like a magazine, like a good story. This happens to me with the Paris Review, New York, or these kind of guys all the time. Then you run into like a paywall. It's so annoying.
Mm.
Like you should especially because these places are big enough to not have that. But there are other ways to fund these spaces than to kind of paywall the writing. Um, in that sense. And of course, it's not realistic to read every magazine cover to cover. I think that over time, if you are, I think there can be a certain fun and kind of making the process very crafty and like, spending some time and seeing kind of like how you can optimize your submission strategy for each thing. There can be a fun and joy in that too. I don't think that it can remain as fun if you keep going in that direction, if you don't let the authenticity of what you enjoy really take root eventually. And maybe it'll happen to writers after they've been published quite a bit, where they feel like, okay, I've got quite a few publications under my belt. I can kind of relax now. Or maybe they'll be like that from the very beginning, or at some point in between, where they can be like, you know what, I'm not going to think so much solely about submission strategy, but this is going to be more about what I enjoy reading, what I'm attracted to. If I see something and I want to be there, then I will submit there. That's where I am at personally now. Of course, I haven't had much time to submit of late, but even before then, when I was submitting quite heavily, I did see that I was coming to a stage where I was like, I don't really care to chase a kind of submission trend or too much of a fixed strategy, and primarily focus on what I'm attracted by within the magazine itself, as opposed to, yeah, yeah, not too many
So
hardcore rules, so to speak, or none, no hardcore rules.
you're probably familiar with a gazillion of these magazines and who runs them and who the editors are. And it seems to me that a lot of them beyond, below the Plowshares and New Yorker and Paris Review level are run by MFA programs or universities, and I've always been sort of confused about that. If they're run by universities, say Emerson, does that mean that the editors who are screening the submissions are students, or do you know who actually is screening the material?
For the usually for the university-backed magazines, the case will be that the main editors will change every year or every 3 years or every 2 years, depending on the program, the nature of the program. There might be a main kind of overarching editor, but increasingly there are just student editors and student readers for these university-backed magazines that read them. So there's not really a lasting editorial taste, so to speak, which might sound like I'm saying it as a negative thing, but I'm not. It's just a matter of fact kind of thing for these university magazines. This can be another reason also why it can be kind of feel choppy to get into these university magazines, because even though they have that kind of backing of being ancient and official, they're in a way also ephemeral and flighty. In that sense, kind of the more I myself enjoy more of the independently funded magazines. Only Poems, of course, is independently funded completely, and I think that they have I think it's nice to be able to know who the editors are by name and to understand what they like and what they enjoy. It makes sense. I think a magazine, of course, one can say that it's not like I think sometimes newspapers say like the opinions of this writer does not reflect the opinions of whatever the New York Times, but I think it doesn't make sense in a creative space. It goes beyond opinion and even perhaps beyond taste. It's just that this is the vision of these people who are creating the space. And if you're aligned with that vision, or if you see yourself reflected in it in some way, then you want to be a part of it. Often magazines will also have readers, voluntary readers. Some of them pay, some of them don't, but most are voluntary. They'll be kind of the first screeners to get through what they call the slush pile. And then they'll get upvoted. Some of the submissions will get upvoted to be read by associate editors or assistant editors, after which they can be discussed amongst the editor-in-chief and the other main editors to see which one can be selected for publication. Yeah.
It sounds like an awful lot of the editors are quite young.
Yeah,
does that bias you? So you're better off if you're a younger writer, you're going to have a better shot than being an older writer?
That's an interesting question. I think because there are so many magazines now, and I return to this point again because I think this was a luxury that even 10 years ago was not there. And not only are there so many, that they're so much more accessible because of the internet, because of online culture as it is. Whatever kind of benefits that could be there for an older writer to submit to a magazine with an older editor, or vice versa, or like the younger writers, I think they pale a bit against just the fact that there are so many out there. So if this set didn't work, you try here, you try there, and if you're somebody who does have, I think literary magazine submitting, perhaps if I were to say a statement that feels more binary, would be that if you're somebody who writes a lot, then you're very, very well suited for the submitting life, so to speak, because you would just have so many more options and so many more packets to send out to different places and kind of try things out. But if you're somebody who kind of has written a couple of stories and you really feel they're good, that's great. And in a way, it'll make it easier for you because you can send the same few stories to several places, but it might limit you in kind of trying out just all the different places that are there. So in terms of seeing, that's also where it helps to just read the previous issue. And then when the previous issue isn't available or you have to purchase it, that feels like a bit of a block as well, especially when the LitMag, I've seen often that you have to purchase a previous issue and there's a submission fee. It doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
Which is why I appreciate if you enter a contest, they give you a subscription. I really appreciate that.
Okay, I was going to ask about contests.
Yeah.
You can submit just standard way, or you can submit by entering a contest. And a lot of times, sometimes if you submit to a contest, it only says submit to the contest. It doesn't cross over. Sometimes if you submit to a contest, they will consider you for regular publication. It's impossible. I find it impossible to navigate that whole realm of contests. What's the advice?
Yeah.
Are you better off doing a contest or better off just submitting straight?
Yeah, this is a fair question. This is also why when we started our contest at Only Poems, a Poet of the Year prize, we have tried to be very transparent about the process and what it offers, because we would have liked that in return, as well as authors and writers who submit. I know people have different opinions about contests. I would say that, really consider where you're submitting, what the submission fee is, what the prize pool is, how many winners there are. Does the contest have a history of actually selecting winners? Are the judges named? Um, is there a clear timeline check? Sometimes I think recently Narrative Magazine, which is like, again, a very highfalutin magazine, decided that they weren't going to select a winner for one of their big prizes. And it was in their fine print that, they reserve the right to not name a winner, which I find so
That was
frustrating.
really obnoxious. Yeah.
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 And places do that. Some of the, they, we're supposed to select a winner and like 2 finalists, but then they're like, no, we didn't find anybody good enough to be a finalist. So here's just a winner. It's unfair. Even if it's in the terms, it's unfair. Just because something is legal doesn't make it correct. I think
Yeah. Especially when they've collected so much money from the entry fees.
Yeah, exactly. So, really try to understand the ethics of the place you're submitting to. Submitting to contests honestly can be fun. Gambling is fun, not the great thing. It really- Probably a bad
Yeah.
habit if that's the only thing you do, but it's enjoyable sometimes to try your luck. Um, Sometimes you win, and like it's been the same. With me, it's like don't make more of it than it isn't, but also do your kind of thorough research and give it the kind of closer perception that it deserves. Because if you're paying $30 and see what they're getting in return, I don't mind. When I was like a newer struggling writer, when I was like a single mom and a undergrad student, I didn't mind like asking for fee waivers. And people, 90% of the time, the editors were so kind; they'd always offer me a fee waiver. And some of them would still give me a subscription to the magazine. So like, there's people behind these things; they do care. And now, if I submit to a contest, I don't mind paying the fee. Because I only now submit to contests where they give you a subscription for the magazine. And then I usually only submit to contests where the subscription I'm getting, I'll read that magazine or at least flip through it. So like the Georgia Review is one example. Rattle, of course, is another example, just off the top of my head. There are some Canadian ones as well. Contemporary Verse too. For me, like I like their issues, they're pretty. And even if, I'll be honest, like I don't sit and read through the whole thing, but like it's nice to get like a physical token of that, and to kind of just flip through it on like an off Sunday or something, and see, and then you feel like, okay, I'm supporting them as well. Yeah, and like with Only Poems, we offer, for any contest you submit to, our fees are lower than other contest fees. Are $18, and we offer our year membership, which is usually $99. So we offer that for free with the contest submission, because again, we don't have a print publication to offer to give you, but like that's something that we can offer because that comes with other perks. So yeah, that was always important to me, to be able to offer something in return outside of just like you're submitting so we can read your work. And it does take time to read all those submissions. It does. But still, I think it's really nice to be able to offer something. And if you can't, then I think what you can offer is a lot of transparency. Like if you can't offer a membership, if you can't offer a subscription to a physical journal, then offering a lot of transparency, like, hey, this is a contest we're doing to fund our magazine. This is how we're going to use it to fund ourselves. And this, then at least you're offering that in return. So I think that shows character and that shows ethics. And that matters in the present and in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also a good idea if you're gonna submit to contests to have kind of a budget. So, because it can really get out of control. A budget actually for submitting to literary magazines in general, but also to contests, because those little $25-$35 fees really can add up.
Even $3 fees can add up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why, another reason why I really wanted to have a magazine that was free to submit to and that also paid. Because I think any magazine that charges submissions, they should still have a free window. Even like Iron Horse, I think every time maybe I'm like giving away their secrets, but like it's all online. Every time they have a contest, they'll always have like one free submission day. So if you can catch them, It's
Right.
cool. It's nice to be able to make that possible. As a magazine, like maybe you'll lose like, I don't know, $1,000, even if you're making like, I don't know, 10,000. But like that for those like, whatever many authors, that makes a huge difference. Yeah. And with
Mhm.
chill subs the same. Like when people are in need, we are happy to comp them. And I think that genuinely people ask when they are in need. There might be like a couple of people who really aren't in need and they'll still ask. I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So sticking with the contest, this is another like personal question. So
Sure.
I understand that if you win an award, if you win a contest, it's great. You put it on your resume, you add it to your bio, you put it on, you go all over social media with it. But I've been runner up and I've been shortlisted and I've split a prize once and I'm never sure what to it's like winning the silver or the bronze. It's like,
Oh, you should for sure mention it. So what I used to do is like when I was very, very new, like I got like an honorable mention, so I had that in my bio. And then if I got like a shortlist or a finalist, I replaced it with that. And then when I was like a winner for a prize, I replaced it with that.
oh,
um,
so I don't just keep them on
yeah,
forever.
it adds too much to it. It's good to have it on your website, or your like CV and or both. But in your bio, yeah, like definitely celebrate your runner ups and your wins, your stuff you've been nominated for. And then, once you get something that's like, for lack of a better word, like one step above it, and just swap it out for that. Yeah.
Mm,
Like a bio is like just a good kind of a snapshot, professional snapshot of you, that people can kind of glance at and just get a bit of an idea. Um, you can go the totally other way too. Like on my website, I have my, I forget what I call it. I have like, my bio. I think I call it my bio as mirror gazing. And then the other one is bio, but it's wearing a tux. So it's like my official like
great. Yeah.
bio that as I'd like it to be. Um, yeah. So, it's a bit silly. So it's better to just lean into that silliness a little bit. Might as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Um, so we're on the subject of money. A few magazines pay, some surprising magazines pay, sometimes magazines that I've never heard of are paying. Um, how do we navigate that space? Is it automatically a better thing to submit to a paying magazine, or is that kind of
Um, that's a
other
good
considerations?
Yeah, I think again it depends on your goals. It's not necessarily that it's a better thing. I think it's a better thing for magazines to pay. But it's not necessarily that it's a better thing for you to submit only to paying magazines. I think some people make that distinction early on, that I'm only going to submit to places that pay, which is totally fine. Whereas maybe other people, maybe they're where they're placing. At the end of the day, they might pay like $10, $50, even $100. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it's not really enough to um for you to say like I'm a writer who like exists on the earnings. That era is unfortunately, yeah, gone with the times of like Fitzgerald and Hemingway, when Hemingway was being paid like, I don't know, $6 like a word, or at that time,
Mm,
right, for Time magazine. Um so consider that, like, even if you're being paid, it won't be that much. So if there is a magazine that you like and you vibe with and they don't pay, but they have all these other things, they promote their writers, they care, then submit to them. With us, like with Only Poems, we pay writers. We want to be able to pay more, but we still wanted to always be able to pay something. So it's always nice when I see other magazines that say like, even if they pay $5, like it's like, okay, cool, that's sweet. Like you're trying. It's a token. But I would say like a solid $20, $50. Those are like, okay, that's pretty good. So if you want to be somebody who's like really into like, I'm gonna submit to paid magazines only, then like those are good ones to aim for, because there usually be also magazines that are um more solid in terms of just their longevity, and kind of their
mhm.
um yeah, kind of the way they run things. Be wary of like university magazines. Some of them will make you do like the equivalent work of like 3 hours to just get the money for like filling out all the ridiculous forms, which I find I've just like started saying it's okay. I donate the money back to you now. um,
Oh, I know what you
just like
mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's just
After you've been accepted, then they make you fill out all these forms in order to get paid,
yeah,
you mean? Yeah.
it's just so chaotic. So like yeah, they should make it so much easier than
Yeah.
that. But yeah, so do consider that. And in chill subs, you can go on the browse and you can filter by magazines that pay and have no fee. So you can really see, and that you can see how the options reduce quite quickly from like, say 3,000 plus to like, 800 if you click only like they must pay, and then further if you click no fee. Yeah.
Right. You've mentioned vibe. Could you kind of unpack that a little bit and tell us what you mean by the vibe of a literary magazine and how, on Chill Suds, if you're going for vibe, what are you gonna see there in terms of the
Yeah.
different kinds of vibe?
Yeah. I'm happy to talk about that. It's a very popular feature that we have on chill subs. So like one of the vibes we have is very fancy, very impressive, very not fast. So magazines like the Paris Review are in that category. Um, then we've got, as I said, top tier stuff, not Paris Review, but okay. So that's like if that first one is like the bestest, then it's like this is like the best also. And then you have like send us your best, but less intimidating. So like magazines that are still like pretty up there, pretty good, but like not so intimidating. And then we also have like new LitMag, who does like magazines that are newer on the scene. And just those can be really fun to submit to as well. Because of course, yeah, sure, they might like die, but they might also be like a beautiful dying star.
Mm.
We've got magazines with the vibe of like, we're just chilling here. So, they're easier to kind of easy go. They might have a higher acceptance rate. Might be more fun, might be more kind of loose, fast and loose with the rules of genre, for example. Then we've got the weird outsider, what the fuck even is this kind of magazines? Like, what is this crazy stuff? Which can be interesting too. And then you've got also a vibe of just send us your worst, like, which are just upfront, just like, we don't care. Like, we just want your most rejected, awful stuff. Like, we want to see stuff that's just you think is the worst. So it can be pretty fun to navigate through literary magazines like that. Again, makes it a little less serious, a little more fun, and still
Would you want to be published in a magazine that only publishes the words, though? That seems that
they're really
seems
cool.
really strange.
I know it does, but like people are strange and people are so weird, and people are weird and strange and cool at some of these magazines. You've got followings, like there people are dedicated to reading that stuff. Like Misery Tourism is one of them, that has been that says, that fits that vibe a lot. And yeah, there's just so much out there that we can't even.
Yeah. But I would think that some of those magazines would be like you wouldn't want to necessarily have them on your resume if you're submitting to agents and things like that. I mean, is there any concern about that where you just pick something that because you can get your work published and
Oh no, these
it's actually
like the send us your worst ones. These are still very curated and like solid things. Like you go to their website and they look like pretty cool. So it's a bit of a tongue in cheek as well. Like what you think might be your worst isn't really your worst, or like stuff that is more edgy and like pushing the kind of bounds of whatever LitMag publishing is. Um, yeah.
do you have I've often had this conversation with people about especially my students about sort of when to aim high and when to aim low with work and sort of do you automatically my formula is also that every rejection is an opportunity to revise.
Hmm.
So, I don't necessarily tell people to that like you think that your work is ready to go out and so you're going to send it to the New Yorker because you think it's great, but then the New Yorker rejects it and you have an opportunity to revise it and then you realize, oh my god, it really needs a lot of work. So then the second time around, you know okay, you're going to submit it again, but are you going to go back up to the top of the food chain, or is it better to sort of start in the middle of the food chain? Do you
Well,
have any?
with the New Yorker, I mean, if you're gonna reject
That's a ridiculous example, but yeah.
because they take ages. But I would say submit your work to like 5 or 6 places at once. And like personally, I don't base whether I need to revise my work based on rejections. I mean, like Cuttin always says this, he's my partner and he's the editor-in-chief of Only Poems. Like, some like random stranger editor is not a judge of your work. They're not a true judge of your work. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what I think of your work. It matters what you think of it and what the people that you admire and that you hold dear as both friends and mentors, what they think of your work. So if they think that you should edit it, then give that some thought. If you feel it, then give it some thought. But just because some editor of XYZ, whatever fancy schmancy magazine rejected you, shouldn't be a reason for you to doubt your work. Most of the great writers that we know today died in obscurity. So
I know it's so heartening to think that.
Yeah, like talent and fame and luck, they're not friends hanging out in a pub. They all live in different cities. Sometimes they might cross, but rarely, and that's okay. So yeah, don't base the value that you place in your work on editors rejecting it or accepting it.
Yeah, true. Although if you send 3 or 4 out and then they all, that draft comes back rejected, I just see that as an opportunity to come back and review the work, and I almost always find that I want to revise it. So that's why I look at it as an opportunity, and it's all part of the process. But
yeah, if you feel that, then yes. I mean, I think most of writing is just revising.
Yeah, right. And rejection can be a good thing because if you're not certain of something and it gets rejected, you say, "Oh, okay, needs more work." All right. And the other thing is tracking. I have my own sort of system for tracking. I know that if you submit through Submittable kind of keeps a tracker. There are a couple of others, probably I haven't looked, but I'm betting that Chill Subs has some sort of tracking mechanism. But got any tips for how not to make yourself totally crazy on keeping track of what's where and when it's going to get rejected and when it gets accepted and all that?
Yeah, a simple spreadsheet usually works. But Shellstep has a really cool tracker as well that we're working on and adding more features to make it even more intuitive, where you can have all your work and you can kind of move it over into different categories, like submitted here or like rejected or like accepted, etc. It makes it quite again fun and easy to manage. I would say Submittable is probably not a good way to track your work because it's just mostly a submission taking platform. It's more helpful for the people who are taking the submissions and reading them. So definitely have a spreadsheet of your own, or use a tracker with that Chillsubs has. Yeah, just try the tracker.
Okay. All right, great. We are coming up to the end here. My one last question has to do kind of with the overview of this world. Obviously, a lot of these literary magazines, a lot of the writing world in general, has grants that come from the government. And right now, all grants for the arts in general are just being slashed. And I wonder if you're hearing feedback from literary magazines, if you think that this is going to have an effect on how many of them survive or whether new ones get started, or, can you forecast what the landscape is going to look like for this world in, say, 6 months to a year from now?
Yeah, I think that more and more magazines will have to find ways to be more independent and not so attached to kind of the expected inflow of money from donors, as nice as that can be, and as necessary as it is for rich people to help fund the arts. The arts and artists shouldn't have the headspace of expecting that. I think as artists, we ought to remain, of course, humble and open to that kind of grace and help, but we also ought to channel our more resourceful side and think of ways in which we can self-sustain the art that we create, whether that's toning down the scale, rethinking the medium with which we are delivering it. I think more and more magazines will go off print, but I also think that there'll be a more push for like community zines and people kind of making a more grassroots efforts of like sharing printed material that isn't as like confined by the kind of requirements of a university or like press space in that sense. Or at least I would like to believe that.
You
Yeah.
think that means it's gonna become more localized? More like
That is a way to
local communities actually gathering in person and
I
having
do think
readings and salons and stuff like that? Or what do you think?
yeah, I do think that I think we're at the very, very tip of the beginning of that, especially with AI coming in. I think it will, as AI kind of infests more and more social spaces, the kind of last glitzy varnish that was left in the internet will wear off, and people will seek more personal spaces, more physical spaces, even against their will, somewhat, because we are social creatures. We cannot truly be alone. And then we will see a more of a return. We're already seeing it, a return or a desire for physical media. And it's a pendulum. It'll swing back again. But I think right now the pendulum is going to slowly trickle its way down to what we saw. There's a great nostalgia for like the early 2010s and even the mid 2000s, which was this, which was a world of both the internet and the real world coexisting at that time, in that moment, peacefully.
Mhm. And, you brought it up, so I've been remiss not to ask about AI. So just what is AI doing to this? Are people submitting AI stuff? Are the
Yeah,
magazines, do they have mechanisms for screening out AI? I mean, what's that doing to this world?
yeah. People are like Clark's World is a magazine. I'm actually doing an AMA with the Clark's World editor tonight. So Clark's World was always open for submissions or free to submit to, but they had to shut down for submissions for a period of time because of like this just like huge volume of AI submissions, which like overbreak their servers. But like a way to the easiest way to see if something is AI is that it'll just be bad quality. Like when it's human, you can honestly tell. For in terms of editors that publish LitMags, there is, I think, I do trust the refinement and the kind of like taste there for not being so basic for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, people still might get away with it. We are very much at the beginning of this behemoth that is AI, this world. So I do increasingly think that people will try to find respite from it offline. At least that's my hope. And even if it's not offline, then I think within more of a walled garden space that like Substack likes to talk about, for example,
Mhm.
where you
Right.
trust people.
Great. All right. And here's a comment from Sherry saying, I was an editor for a pub on Medium and AI is very obvious. So fingers crossed that it stays obvious and, we can hopefully count on human editors to be able to detect human writing.
Yeah.
So, okay. I think we're at time. I am so grateful, Shannan. No, we're getting some nice comments. Thank you, all the people who are still here. Thank you for joining us. And write on, everybody, and keep submitting. And I hope this has been helpful. And Shannan, thank you again so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. It was lovely. Thank you,
Okay.
Amy. Bye.
Bye.